Yeah, that's I've never seen that before.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most unsettling moments on Finding Your Roots, where participants made disturbing revelations about their ancestry.
It had to be horrible for your father.
It was definitely a major loss to my family.
Number 30, Joyce Willis. While Finding Your Roots typically focuses on celebrities, the season 10 finale dived into the ancestry of 3 everyday Americans. One of them, Joyce Willis, hoped to discover if Robert G. Willis, the man believed to be her great-grandfather, actually was.
We don't know if Beatrice was born into a peaceful home. There are no further records even to suggest why Robert might have said that she wasn't his daughter.
The investigation revealed surprising details about Robert and his wife, Elnora. Researchers uncovered that while Elnora was still nursing their baby, Robert had hit her, an offense that would have landed him in jail if Elnora hadn't begged the judge.
The one that he hurt was the one that saved him.
Mm-hmm. Well, she clearly saved him because he was going to go in the can.
Wow.
Their turmoil didn't end there. Just months later, their baby, Robert Jr., died at just 7 months old. Aware of the state of her great-grandparents' marriage, Willis reflected that such a loss likely deepened the cracks in their already fragile relationship.
So I imagine since there was already some marital discord, that it may have pushed them further apart from each other.
Number 29, Terry Morrow. The Viewers Like You episode also featured Terry Morrow, a school bus driver who set out to uncover why Lenora Chambers, her great-grandfather's mother, had abandoned him as a child. Morrow's great-grandfather, Walter Tagger, was only 5 when Lenora left him with another family.
He would have longed to see her again, longed for the possibility of seeing her again, because what child doesn't want to see their mother? You're always your mother's child.
Through the show, she learned that Walter was the product of a relationship between Lenora, who was white, and Hal Moore, a black man. At the time, interracial relationships were illegal, making it impossible for the couple to stay together. Lenora later married a white man and had 2 more children, one of whom died of a cerebral hemorrhage.
What's it like to know that Lenora's other family had such tough going?
It was hard for everybody. It was hard. It was hard for her, for choices that she made, but it was hard for everybody.
Though Morrow struggled with Lenora's decision, she ultimately came to see it as an act that ensured Walter's survival, and eventually her own existence.
She made a choice that saved her life, saved his life, and brought me into the world.
That's a lovely way to put it.
Number 28, Ed ONeal. He's best known for portraying the patriarch of beloved fictional families. But in 2024, Ed ONeal sought to know more about his real family. What he discovered about his 3rd great-grandmother, Bridget Tyrell, left him both shocked and deeply moved.
Oh, that's just incredible.
It is.
Boy, I'm glad I came here today.
An Irish immigrant living in Ohio when the Civil War broke out, Bridget watched 2 of her sons join the Union Army. She then decided to serve in her own way.
But as it turns out, Bridget wasn't at home at all. Bridget was serving in the Union Army herself as a nurse.
Despite likely having no formal medical training, Bridget made several trips to the battlefields to care for wounded soldiers. In this role, she witnessed unspeakable horrors and often stayed with the dying soldiers in their final moments. When she passed away, her obituary was published in the newspaper, honoring her compassion and selfless service.
Many a dying soldier blessed her for her kindness and care with their last breath. So that was sort of what I thought.
Number 27, Christopher Maloney. For actor Christopher Maloney to be born in America, his paternal great-grandfather, Enrico Maloney, first had to overcome incredible odds to migrate from Italy. In this season 7 episode, Maloney learned that Enrico never knew his parents, as he had been abandoned at a church when he was a baby.
Person leaving the baby would rotate the wheel and its contents into the building, and then ring a bell to alert the attendant.
He managed to survive his childhood thanks to a nurse who cared for him, but that support ended when he was just 12 years old, forcing him to fend for himself.
They detail the small amounts of money she spent on his care. But the payments stopped when Enrico was about 12 years old, suggesting that at that age, he was left to his own devices.
Although such experiences were common for orphans in Italy at the time, that didn't make the revelation any less harrowing for Maloney. As he processed the hardships Enrico had to endure, Maloney grew emotional and was ultimately brought to tears.
Yeah, I think that's what the feelings are.
Number 26, Ted Dansen. Actor Ted Dansen's 10th great-grandmother was Anne Hutchinson, a Puritan who emigrated from England to colonial Massachusetts and soon challenged the strict norms of her community.
As Anne's prayer meetings grew in popularity, she began to criticize the sermons of Puritan ministers, throwing herself into direct conflict with the colony's religious establishment.
Hutchinson held gatherings in her home where she encouraged women to think critically and interpret sermons on their own. That would be celebrated today, but back in the 17th century, it was a radical step.
Doesn't look good for your grandma.
Don't look good for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Shame on them.
After claiming she could communicate directly with God, Hutchinson was eventually brought to trial for heresy. At her hearing, she gave a defiant speech, asserting that her fate rested with God and not the court.
I love the first part. You have no power over my body. Neither can you do me any harm. For I am in the hands of the eternal Jehovah, my Savior.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah, it almost felt like Joan of Arc.
Though she was convicted and banished from the colony, Hutchinson is now remembered as a feminist icon and a trailblazer for religious freedom. Number 25, Eric Stonestreet.
Yeah, I personally have never heard this. We're getting close to my grandma being born here in 1918.
That's right.
As a child, Eric Stonestreet shared a close bond with his grandmother, Helen Heath. So when he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2019, he took the opportunity to explore her ancestry. Helen's grandfather, Wilhelm Kiekert, had emigrated from Germany to America in his early 20s. He settled in Kansas, where he bought land and started a farm with his family.
This is him creating a new life for himself and literally cultivating the ground for me.
However, after the US entered World War I, the government grew suspicious of German immigrants and required them to register or face arrest. As a result, Wilhelm and his wife Anna were forced to register as alien enemies of the state and were treated like criminals.
As you can see, he was fingerprinted like a criminal.
Oh my gosh. He did this because he had to?
Because he had to.
He had to either show up or risk.
You would go to jail.
Got it.
They endured this discrimination until the war ended, after which Wilhelm became a naturalized American citizen. Number 24, Lupita Nyongo. Oscar-winning actress Lupita Nyongo came on Finding Your Roots to learn more about her father, Anyang Nyongo. A political science professor, Anyang was a key figure in the fight for democracy during the autocratic rule of President Daniel Moi in Kenya.
My father is so passionate about the country, and he so deeply believes that there is a better future possible.
In 1980, his family was informed that his younger brother Charles had died, but they later suspected he had been deliberately killed as a warning. Despite this, Anyang continued to hold secret political meetings in his house. When the government discovered these gatherings, he was abducted and held in a torture facility for several weeks.
I didn't understand what was going on, and he was gone for a while.
26 days he was tortured in Nyayo House. Your mother must have thought your father was never going to come back.
She must have.
Nevertheless, he remained committed to advancing democracy in Kenya. Anyang's resilience eventually led to his election to the Kenyan Senate, and later, his appointment as governor of Kisumu County.
That's beautiful.
Your father's story is a miracle.
He's my hero.
Number 23, Brendan Fraser.
Imagine thinking this through. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're going to get a gun. We're going to ambush him.
Yeah.
They had a plan. That's criminal.
For Oscar-winning actor Brendan Fraser, the dark revelation in his ancestry was far more than a family dispute or a hidden secret. It involved an attempted murder. In season 10, Fraser learned about his great-great-grandfather, Patrick Devine, who emigrated from Ireland to the US as a child and worked as a coal miner.
By the time that census had been recorded, Patrick, your ancestor, had likely been a coal miner for more than 30 years.
Right.
As you can see, he and Margaret now had 8 children.
When their wages were reduced, Patrick and his fellow miners went on strike, only to be replaced by new workers. In response, Patrick and another engineer tried to kill their replacements by shooting them, but they fortunately survived.
It seems that your great-great-grandfather Patrick was fired from his job for striking. And along with a former colleague, he shot at the man who had replaced him.
Despite this being a crime, host Henry Louis Gates Jr. found no records of Patrick being charged. In fact, he later returned to the same job and managed to purchase his own home. Number 22. Don Lemon. It's heartbreaking to fathom a human being treated as the property of another, and it's even more disturbing to think of a monetary value being placed on such lives. TV anchor Don Lemon confronted this painful reality when he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2021.
M. Shannon departed this life, leaving an estate composed of land, slaves, and movables situated in this parish.
Lemon was shown a document listing the names of some of his ancestors who were held as slaves at a plantation. The records, compiled after the death of the plantation's mistress, included not only their names and ages, but also their appraised worth in dollars.
Eliza, 2, and an infant at $1,800. That was their worth?
Right.
As Lemon read this figure aloud, he was overcome with emotion and couldn't stop himself from shedding tears.
That's where I came from.
Number 21. Michael Imperioli. The infrastructure we enjoy today was built through tireless hard work and, at times, painful human sacrifice. Actor Michael Imperioli's family suffered one such tragedy during the development of the New York City subway system.
It was difficult and dangerous work, and it led to a terrible tragedy.
Back in the early 20th century, his great-grandfather, Giovanni Luzzi, worked as a car cleaner for the trains. However, his life came to a shocking end in 1919 when he was struck by a train while working on the tracks in the Bronx.
No, a horrible way to die. I mean, yeah, and he was so young.
Giovanni was struck by a train in the Bronx while working on a stretch of elevated track.
This sudden loss meant that his young wife was left to raise their children all on her own. The absence of a father had a lasting impact on the young family, and it reportedly led to Imperioli's grandfather, Alberto Luzzi, acting out as a child.
His life as a kid reminded me like the Little Rascals or like the Bowery Boys, like these, gang of little kids like wandering around Manhattan, getting into trouble and, stealing like pastries and
Number 20. Alanis Moricette. Canadian rock artist Alanis Moricette didn't learn about her Jewish ancestry until she was in her late 20s.
Why do you think that no one told you?
I think there was a terror that is in their bones, and they were being protective of us and just not wanting anti-Semitism, and so they were doing it to protect us.
On Finding Your Roots, she uncovered even more details about that side of her family, particularly the fate of her great-uncles, Georgie and Sandor Fierstein. Both men disappeared during the Holocaust, leaving their family with no answers.
Can you imagine what that was like for your grandfather, carrying that burden?
Not knowing where your sibling is, if they're alive or dead.
Yeah. Having no closure, no finality.
No. God.
However, using records at Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center, the show's team dug up those answers. They discovered that the brothers had been sent to work camps in Russia, where they tragically lost their lives. Moricette found this especially heartbreaking, as her grandfather, who escaped the same fate as his brothers and moved to Canada, passed away without ever knowing what happened to them.
I mean, it's one thing to have a family rumor that they disappeared, but now we know why they disappeared.
Yeah, no, my mother and my grandmother, we didn't get into this.
Number 19, Jordan Peele.
I mean, you got to think that, knowing that this could happen, you go your entire life or your child's entire life fearing this day.
One often overlooked consequence of the slave trade was the separation of families. Fathers never seeing their kids again, young children forced to grow up on their own. That unfortunate fate befell filmmaker Jordan Peele's great-great-grandmother, Alvania. In 1860, when she was just 12 years old, Alvania was taken away from her parents and brother and sold into slavery for $1,250.
It's crazy, and you wonder what that does to the psychology of a family.
While reflecting on what effects such an experience could have on the psyche of Alvania and her family, Peele felt a mix of pain and pride. He recognized the psychological trauma they must have endured as a result, and how that may have been passed down through generations.
And I wonder if there's some kind of deep-seated connection and the idea of you can be a family even if you're apart.
Number 18, Lisa Ling.
We found a very different kind of story. A story not of family secrets, but rather of a family in terrible danger.
In December 1941, during World War II, Japan invaded Hong Kong, beginning a nearly 4-year military occupation that led to widespread starvation and countless deaths. To escape the famine and brutality of Japanese rule, many residents fled on foot to China. One of them was journalist Lisa Ling's grandmother, who wrote a book about her harrowing experience making that journey.
We had already marched 3 days, putting in about 15 miles each day. My shoes were in terrible condition, with the soles worn through. Broken blisters on my feet caused much pain and discomfort. After each rest, I had to clench my teeth in order to hoist myself up from the bench to start walking again.
Ling had actually read the book years earlier, but seeing it again on the show, she was able to re-examine it with a more mature perspective. She was clearly struck by the immense resilience and strength her grandmother showed in embarking on that journey while carrying her family on her back, literally.
I had no idea that they went into China. I had no idea. I can't even imagine how she was able to do it.
Number 17, Justina Machado.
Justina, this is a court record we located in the General Archives in Puerto Rico. It concerns a prison sentence handed down on May 9, 1939.
The freedoms enjoyed by queer people in some parts of the world today are the result of long, hard-fought battles. Few things highlight the significance of these struggles as clearly as cases like this. On season 6 of Finding Your Roots, actress Justina Machado discovered a surprising part of her grandfather's past.
The people of Puerto Rico versus Ismael Figueroa Machado and Francisco Perez Luciano. Crime against nature.
In his youth, he was sent to the Rio Piedras State Penitentiary, one of the most notorious Caribbean prisons, for having sexual relations with another man. At the time, this was considered a crime in the eyes of the law, one that attracted even more prison time for her grandfather while he was already incarcerated.
I mean, he didn't have Bendito.
Didn't have a chance.
No, it's so sad. I mean, yeah.
Number 16, Wes Studi. Between 1830 and 1850, the US government forcibly displaced around 60,000 indigenous Americans from their ancestral homelands in what became known as the Trail of Tears.
And I know it's got to be painful.
Well, we've lived with that pain for a long time.
This ethnic cleansing left scars that have impacted generations of Native Americans, including actor Wes Studi. When he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2024, Studi learned of his maternal third great-grandmother, Big Nancy, who was among those forced to leave their home in Georgia and suffer a grueling journey to Oklahoma.
I've been to some of the places that she passed through. I've been to many of these places, seen them.
Years after the harrowing ordeal, Nancy filed a claim for compensation, seeking $187 for the properties white settlers had taken from her. Studi reflected on the deep pain this history carries, acknowledging the lasting effects it has had on his people.
Well, it pisses me off. It always has, but it's more succinct. Now I know where it was.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the people are still there. who took over her place.
Number 15, Jeff Daniels. During the Salem witch trials of 1692, one of the few men convicted of witchcraft and executed was Samuel Wardwell.
Samuel Wardwell saith that at that time when the devil appeared and told him he was a prince of the air, that then he signed his book by making a mark like a square with a black pen.
Wardwell was a self-professed fortune teller whose practices apparently drew suspicions of the occult among the locals and led to his conviction. One of the people who testified against him was Captain Thomas Chandler, the 8th great-grandfather of actor Jeff Daniels.
Now, according to scholars with whom we spoke, your ancestors' testimony in this trial is fairly mild. But this was not his only involvement in the affair.
Daniels learned this unsettling fact on Finding Your Roots, where he also discovered that Chandler testified against another accused witch, Mary Parker. Unlike Wardwell, Parker was Chandler's neighbor and peer, yet he believed she was using sorcery on his daughter and granddaughter, which prompted his testimony.
I would like to think that it wasn't just something he did to enjoy, that it was something that he actually believed in, but that doesn't make it a bit better.
Number 14, Eliza Schlesinger.
When you look at pictures from history of atrocities committed against your people in particular, there's always that pull. But I never thought I had any actual connection because I didn't know any of the history.
It was abstract.
Yes.
Although she had always been aware of her Jewish heritage, comedian Eliza Schlesinger never knew she had a direct link to the Holocaust until she appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2024. In the episode, Schlesinger learned that while her great-grandmother immigrated to the US from Poland before the Holocaust, she left behind at least 2 brothers. One of them, Lipa, was a textile dealer who was forced into a ghetto in Mława after the Nazis invaded.
I know that feeling when your sibling's in danger and you feel helpless, especially from like an ocean away. So I can't begin to imagine this. I don't think I want to.
He was later sent to Auschwitz, where he tragically lost his life. The revelation brought Schlesinger to tears as she confronted both the atrocities that her ancestor endured, as well as her newfound connection to the Holocaust.
It was already so real. And so now it's palpable.
Number 13, Sigourney Weaver. Award-winning actress Sigourney Weaver came to Finding Your Roots hoping to uncover a juicy scandal in her ancestral line. What she found, however, was far darker than she expected.
I see. But where's Barbara? Where's Josiah's wife? Your great-great-grandmother?
I don't know. Did she die?
Well, remember, it said that he's married. So if she had died, he would be a widower.
But she's just not there.
Using census records from 1871, the show's researchers discovered that Weaver's great-great-grandparents, Josiah and Barbara Hunt, were living apart, despite having a child together. Barbara had moved in with another man, whom Josiah accused her of having an affair with.
After the separation, Mrs. Hunt went to reside at Reading with the correspondent, ostensibly as his housekeeper, but from the general tenor of her behavior, there was but little doubt that their intimacy was of a more familiar nature.
She became pregnant by this man, but suffered a miscarriage, after which she was institutionalized in a psychiatric facility, where she remained for the rest of her life. Perhaps inspired by this ordeal, Barbara's son, Weaver's great-grandfather, later became a doctor in another psychiatric facility, where patients were treated much more humanely.
And get an inkling of what it was based on emotionally is so moving. You know, even though what happened to her was tragic, he somehow made good come out of it.
Number 12, Scarlett Johansson.
I cannot imagine what you must be feeling. Just hell must have been hell.
It's one thing to hear about your ancestors suffering a tragic fate, but it's an entirely different experience to see the details of their deaths written down. That can bring tears to even the driest eyes. Such was the case for actress Scarlett Johansson, who, in this 2017 episode, discovered the fate of her great-uncle Moisha and his family, who lived in Grodziec, Poland, when World War II began.
And I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
No,
but it's hard not to.
It's hard not to.
Moishe and his family were rounded up and taken to the infamous Warsaw Ghetto. There, he and at least 2 of his 10 children were killed. Johansson couldn't help but fight back tears, though she was grateful to learn more about her family history, as it deepened her connection to her roots.
The fate of one brother versus the other.
Yeah.
It makes me feel more deeply connected to that side of myself, that side of my family. I didn't expect that.
Number 11, LL Cool J. Some genetic discoveries are so sensitive that they need to be shared privately first before being revealed on camera. This was the case with LL Cool J.
It's a little devastating to know that, that guy that raised me, that was so kind to me, wasn't my blood.
For most of his childhood, the rapper was raised by the people he believed to be his maternal grandparents. Even his mother, Andrea Griffith, thought they were her biological parents. However, a DNA test on Finding Your Roots revealed otherwise.
We compared Andrea's DNA to that of her Griffith cousin. If they truly are first cousins, they should share about 12.5% of their DNA, which we would see in red here.
But we see nothing.
Right, we don't see any red.
In reality, Griffith was adopted as an infant, and her adoptive parents, Eugene Griffith and Ellen Hightower, never made that information known to her throughout their lives. Regardless, the revelation didn't change LL Cool J's perception of his adoptive grandparents. If anything, it deepened his love and respect for them.
They did so well for us. I have more love and respect for them than I ever did.
Number 10, Roseanne Cash. In 2021, Roseanne Cash, the daughter of country music icon Johnny Cash, appeared on Finding Your Roots, where she made a particularly interesting discovery.
Would you like to meet your DNA cousin?
Yes.
Okay, please turn the page.
Back in 1965, Cash's mother Vivian was targeted by the KKK in a racist campaign. The white supremacist group believed Vivian was black, thus alleging her marriage to Johnny was illegal.
She filed for divorce as kind of an ultimatum and wishful thinking, and thinking that maybe if he sees I'm serious, he'll come back.
The controversy only died down after the country singer issued a public statement insisting his wife was white. However, on Finding Your Roots, Cash discovered that her mother indeed had African-American heritage.
Really? Yep.
Vivian's maternal great-great-grandmother was a mixed-race woman named Sarah Shields, who was born into slavery in Alabama. Shields later married a white man and recorded all her children as white in official documents. Number 9, Joe Manganelo. Actor Joe Manganelo owes his existence today to the remarkable tenacity of his maternal great-grandmother, Terviz Rose Darakjan.
Joe's grandmother, Sandra, was born in the Ottoman Empire during World War I. Her mother, a woman named Rose Darakjan, was a survivor of the Armenian genocide.
Darakjan was an Armenian woman who was married with 8 children. In 1915, during the Armenian genocide, her husband and 7 of her children were murdered before her eyes. Darakjan managed to escape and swam across the Euphrates River with her last surviving child strapped to her back. But tragically, the infant died during the journey.
You ready to see what we found?
Man.
She was then thrown into an internment camp where she encountered a German soldier named Karl Wilhelm Beutinger, who impregnated her. On his paternal side, Manganelo also discovered that the man he believed to be his grandfather, Emilio Manganelo, was not biologically related to him.
Close the door, and whoosh, I open the door, and I'm here in Germany at this time looking at my ancestor that I never knew.
Number 8, Tig Notaro. Even before Finding Your Roots, comedian Tig Notaro always knew she was the descendant of a politician.
Comedian Tig Notaro grew up knowing that she had a celebrated ancestor.
Her great-great-grandfather was John Fitzpatrick, who served as the mayor of New Orleans from 1892 to 1896. But it was on the show that Notaro first learned about her ancestors' upbringing.
Register of boys received into the asylum. Name of the boy, John Fitzpatrick. Age when received, 10 years.
At the age of 7, Fitzpatrick lost his father and was placed in an orphan asylum alongside 2 of his brothers. Surprisingly, this wasn't due to their mother's demise. but rather the limited public welfare system, which apparently left her with no choice but to entrust some of her children to an orphanage.
Can you imagine being in Catherine's position and being forced to do that?
That's something I don't think I could get through.
Fitzpatrick was later reunited with his mother and worked his way up from a newspaper boy to the mayor's office.
The only thing that I know about him is just this man in a picture. It's like, hey, he was the mayor. I don't know any of this.
Number 7, Edward Norton. While Edward Norton is widely recognized for his roles in several popular Hollywood films, it turns out he may not be the most famous individual in his family tree.
Pocahontas is indeed your 12th great-grandmother.
In the season 9 premiere of Finding Your Roots, the actor learned that Pocahontas was his 12th great-grandmother, confirming a long-held family lore.
Makes you realize what a small, piece of the whole human story you are.
But perhaps the most uncomfortable detail uncovered during the episode was the revelation that Norton's third great-grandfather, John Winstead, was a slave owner in North Carolina. While he wouldn't be the first celebrity to make such a discovery, Norton reflected on its disturbing nature, describing it as a, quote, uncomfortable truth that, quote, needs to be acknowledged and, quote, contended with.
It's not a judgment on you and your own life, but it's a judgment on the history of this country.
Number 6, Fred Armisen. For most of his life, Saturday Night Live alum Fred Armisen believed he was 1/4 Japanese, attributing this to his grandfather, the late Masami Kuni, who hailed from Japan. He would later discover this was all false.
So am I Korean? No.
Kuni was actually South Korean, originally named Pak Young-in, and only assumed a Japanese identity after the 1923 massacre of Koreans in Japan.
It changes the way I think about myself.
But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Armisen also learned that while Kuni lived in Germany in the 1930s and 40s, he engaged in propaganda efforts for the Nazis by entertaining German troops. Additionally, during this period, Kuni apparently also worked as a spy for Japan, gathering intelligence on Southern European and Turkish affairs.
He is one of the most clever agents they have.
Number 5, Lena Dunham. The 2024 film Treasure stars Lena Dunham as a young woman who visits Poland with her aging father and is forced to confront her family's Holocaust past. When Dunham appeared on Finding Your Roots, she discovered unexpected parallels between her own ancestry and that of her character in the movie.
Can you imagine when you were 14, your parents would put you on a boat?
No, I can't.
It turns out that Dunham's great-great-grandmother Regina migrated to America as a teenager, leaving behind nearly a dozen siblings in Europe. Tragically, during World War II, one of Regina's nieces, Ilana, was separated from the rest of her family and sent to the Nazi-occupied city of Kamieniec-Podilsky in Ukraine. Ilana is believed to be one of roughly 24,000 Jews who lost their lives there.
To see a personal connection to it literalizes it in a way that is, that's very, very powerful.
Number 4, Joe Madison. Celebrities who appear on Finding Your Roots step into the unknown, unsure of what family secrets might be revealed. While many learn unsettling details about distant ancestors, veteran radio host Joe Madison was confronted with a startling truth about his own father.
It was such a shocking discovery that I felt compelled to call Joe at home before our interview to let him know in private, away from any TV cameras.
In the season 5 episode, Madison found out that Felix Madison, whom he had always believed to be his biological father, actually wasn't.
I appreciated your sincerity and concern.
Sensing the sensitivity of the information, host Henry Louis Gates Jr. first called Madison privately to share it with him, away from all the cameras.
And then the real question is, then who was?
Madison's appearance on the show also led him to the discovery that his biological grandfather was one of the subjects of the controversial Tuskegee Institute syphilis study. Number 3, Fel Williams. For many African Americans, having the chance to read firsthand stories of their ancestors' lives, especially those who were enslaved, is rare. Acclaimed music producer Pharrell Williams got this opportunity when he appeared on Finding Your Roots in 2021.
I was born on the 18th of December, 1852,
I was born on the plantation near Tar River.
During the show, Williams was presented with an interview given by his great-great-great-aunt, Jane Arrington, who participated in the slave narrative project in the 1930s. In the interview, Arrington shared detailed accounts of her harrowing experience as an enslaved person. As he read the notes on the program, Williams was deeply moved by the hardships his ancestor was forced to endure.
Those words also forced him to confront the cruel reality of what those ancestors actually experienced.
He also uncovered the unsettling fact that his great-great-great-grandfather, Fenner Williams, spent the first decade of his life enslaved.
It's a lot, man.
Oh,
I have to say I am forever changed.
Number 2, Michael Douglas. Throughout his career, actor Michael Douglas has starred in multiple crime thrillers. Yet few of those fictional narratives can match the gripping real-life tales of his own ancestors.
Last permanent residence, Chelsea, Russia.
Chelsea, Russia. You know who that is? That's your father's uncle.
In a 2024 episode of the show, Douglas learned about his grandfather, Harry Danielovich, and his great-uncle, Moshe, both of whom migrated to the US from Chelsea in present-day Belarus. Before they left for America, both Harry and Moshe were caught up in a life of crime.
Anyone who knows the whereabouts of Danielovich is obliged to inform the court where he is.
Harry had been arrested and sent to prison for robbery, while Moshe was implicated in an armed robbery case in 1906 and declared a wanted man in Chelsea. However, it is unclear if he was ever apprehended before he left the country.
This is blowing my mind a little. This is really blowing my mind.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Maya Rudolph. Like many other celebrities who have appeared on Finding Your Roots, Maya Rudolph aimed to uncover her identity.
1860 slave census for a man named John Warren Grigsby.
Cannot believe I'm looking at this.
The SNL alum was curious about her maternal African-American heritage and was given a glimpse into her ancestry. Through the show, Rudolph discovered her maternal great-great-great-grandfather, James Grigsby, who was born into slavery in Lincoln County, Kentucky.
That breaks my heart. Well,
a census document from 1860 showed Grigsby listed without a name, but solely by his sex and age, 5. This discovery was deeply unsettling to Rudolph, causing her to break down in tears.
Wow. I just can't believe what I'm looking at.
She also learned of another maternal ancestor whose owner's grandson denied him the financial compensation and freedom promised in his owner's will. Fortunately, he took the grandson to court and won.
It just makes you feel like you're part of something so much bigger.
What dark discoveries do you think are buried in your family tree? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
It makes me think, I don't know, did it really solve anything? Did it help? Did he feel like he succeeded? I don't know.